So good evening and welcome. My name is Sheena. I'm part of the Wellspring Alberta team. We're so pleased you could join us tonight for tonight's speaker session, Living Your Best with Advanced Metastatic, Chronic, or Non-Curable Cancer to Intimacy and Beyond with Julie Munch. We proudly provide this program in partnership with Cancer Care Alberta. We're going to begin tonight. We are so grateful to have Jen with us this evening. She's going to start this program with sharing her own personal experience with all of you. We know this is such a meaningful part of this program, and we're so thankful to the Jens of this world for making this happen. Welcome, warm welcome to you, Jen, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Hi, thank you. I'm a mom, a wife, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer back in January 2021. After enduring chemo and completing treatment, I had a full hysterectomy as well because I have the BRCA gene mutation. Having to deal with menopause at 38 is a huge challenge. I've experienced a lot of issues among, you experience so much as a cancer patient, but then on top you experience this other half that not a lot of people talk about. So it's very important to share. So I've experienced like dryness, low or no libido, major mood swings, depression, bladder infections, all those things that, are hard to share. These issues affect myself, my family, and mostly they affect a huge toll and put a toll on my husband. My husband has been my rock and has endured a lot going through all of this with me. So it's really frustrating when cancer is taking so much from me, and then to take an intimate part away as well is a challenge. Seeing Julie, though, on a regular basis was crucial for my marriage. My husband and I would go to the appointments together, as Julie would help me with strategies and also help me and my husband better understand what is going on with me physically and mentally. As my body changed, we were given advice and techniques and kind of like homework to help us connect back on such an important level as husband and wife. That was the first time my husband and I had ever had conversations with a professional about intimacy. We found that the more we opened up and shared our struggles with Julie, the more we learned that the issues are quite common and normal after treatment. I highly recommend the Oasis program. We have been going regularly for this past year and are continually going. We see Julie next month. And honestly, Julie has been a huge saving grace for my marriage and my relationship with my husband. Cancer robs us all so much, and I'm very thankful for the Oasis program, especially Julie, for helping us gain some control back. Thank you all for having me tonight, and I really encourage you to join the program, and just a big blessing to you all. And now to Julie. Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much, Jen. That was great to hear, and I look forward to continue working with you. So hi, everyone. My name is Julie, and I'll go into a little bit about my introduction on the next slide, but just want to introduce this topic because maybe it's something that hasn't been brought up with you a lot. To intimacy and beyond, let's talk about sex. And I first want to acknowledge that when I use the terms intimacy and sex, I want you to know that I am talking about so much more than just intercourse or insertive sex. We're talking about a huge spectrum of activities that relate to your sexual health, relate to your relations with a partner. It's just really variable, and we'll talk about that more as we go through. But as I use the words intimacy, I want you to know that it's not just referring to things like intercourse. So just introducing myself, because I get asked a lot, how did I get into this role? So I am a registered occupational therapist with the province of Alberta and was working in oncology as an OT, and the role of sexual health consultant came up. As an OT, meaningful activities are really important with our holistic care approach, and sexuality is, a really meaningful activity to many people. So for my master's degree, I did my thesis paper on sexuality and disability. It was a qualitative study and gave me a lot of insight into the varying levels of sexuality and how that is such a spectrum. I had a huge interest in sexuality throughout the lifespan, and then since taking this line, have taken further education in oncology and sexual health. So just letting you know, I am based out of Calgary. The OASIS program stands for Oncology and Sexuality, Intimacy, and Survivorship, and I am in the psychosocial department out of the Holy Cross. My email is at the bottom of this slide, julie.munch@ahs.ca, should you want to reach out to me, and I will repeat that at the end as well. But this might be the first time that a lot of you are talking about sexual health. And, you know, unfortunately, it is a topic that sometimes people aren't comfortable bringing up. 96% of healthcare providers say it's their job to bring up, but only 2% routinely speak to patients about it. 41% of patients say they have sexual concerns, and 100% of cancer patients would have welcomed information, written or verbal, regarding sexuality. But the issue is that we're not always comfortable bringing it up. So for any healthcare professionals who are currently on the line for this presentation, just giving your patients that permission to bring up this topic is so important. You don't need to have the answers. You just need to give them a table of where they can bring up this topic, and then you can refer them on to someone such as me. And that's what our program is here for. And before we get talking about some deeper topics, I just want to touch on values because everyone comes from a different place of origin, different backgrounds, different religions. And some of the things I say maybe might not resonate with you or not align with your values. I just want you to recognize that. And hopefully you can come into this with an open mind. I have zero intention of changing your values. Just maybe reflect on the things that maybe impact how you view sexuality, things like where you're from, societal expectations, your spirituality, how you were brought up. You know, all these things can impact how you view the world and interact with it. And a lot of that does influence sexuality, or maybe even treatment decisions that you've made throughout this journey. So a lot of the times my patients will come in to see me and say, well, I have cancer. Should I even be worried about sexuality? Or I'm 90 years old. Is this a topic I should be concerned about? And, you know, there is an assumption that sexual interest should decrease as you age or decrease with illness, but that is not the case. Yeah, there might be some biological changes around arousal and desire. However, interest in sex always remains high, regardless of age, regardless of illness, regardless of anything. Maybe your idea of what intimacy looks like might change, but that's okay. And just giving yourself that permission that you can explore this topic further is just so important for your sexual health, connections with a partner, and just leaving that part of you open. So when it comes to cancer, there's so many treatments, there's so many side effects, and I am not even going to broach, you know, even a divot in this, but I just want to comment on the most commonly seen side effects that I tend to see on a regular basis. I would say daily, and like I said, they do go beyond this. So if you do have other side effects that aren't listed here, totally normal as well. Just that these are the ones that I see daily. When it comes to things like radiation, fatigue from the toll on your body, the pain to the area, damage to the tissue of the site of radiation, decreased elasticity in the skin, nerve damage to the area, and chemotherapy, again, fatigue from the toll on your body, neuropathy, impact on sexual response. A lot of people know that neuropathy happens to hands and feet, but little is it talked about that neuropathy happens to genitals as well. And then a lot of issues around body image happen with chemotherapy as well. If you're on hormone therapy, preventing the production of testosterone or estrogen, some really severe side effects can happen from that. Things like vaginal dryness, being put into menopause, erectile dysfunction, difficulty attaining or maintaining erections, decreased blood flow to genitals, decreased sensation, inability to orgasm, and my biggest complaint I see almost with 99% of my patients, decreased arousal and desire. We'll go into that a little bit more, but that is a complex topic and we'll dive into that further. Surgeries can cause damage to the tissues and nerves that were operated on, and, you know, altered body image, body scarring, and, you know, maybe you have a new product on your body or something missing or something added that can really change, you know, your perception of self. So I kind of already touched on these from the treatments and their side effects, but the common concerns that I do see on a daily basis. Again, number one, I will repeat it over: lack of desire, the vaginal dryness, the erectile dysfunction, stress and body image concerns, decreased sensation, inability to orgasm, painful intercourse, and changes to intimacy with a partner. And I have sexual schema in brackets here, and your sexual schema is kind of that routine with your partner that you consider to be kind of, well, it's your schema of sex, like what sex looks like in your relationship. And when that gets altered and you're not able to do things the way that you're used to doing them, that can be really hard on a relationship, hard on a person individually if they are single. But realizing that change doesn't have to be a bad thing. Change can mean something new and exciting sometimes, and just taking that different vision on that, okay? We will talk more about that as well. So examples of treatments that I offer in my clinic for issues that are happening, and if you are having anything in particular, I would want to see one-on-one, and I'm not telling you to go ahead and do these things, but just to give you an idea that, hey, there are these side effects, but there is something that we do about them and things that actually work. We do blood flow activities to heal tissue, get nerves functioning again, maintain health. Vaginal moisturizers to improve elasticity, dilators to gradually stretch tissue, adaptive aids should you be having difficulty doing something, advice on positioning, especially if certain positions are causing you pain. We can chat about that. Non-insertive sex options. So if intercourse is off the table, what can sex look like? And we can talk about that. Improving your confidence and body image, discussing to that change in your sexual schema, that routine that you and your partner are used to, improving intimacy, desire, and communication, whether you're coupled or single, and mindful touching, which is a really great activity that I talk to a lot of my couples about reintroducing intimacy in the relationship. And I'll touch more on that again later too. So desire. Desire is such a complex construct. They tried to create a pill for women that would elicit desire because they had Viagra for men. But the funny thing is that Viagra on its own does not elicit desire. Viagra stimulates blood flow throughout the body, and desire is needed to create an erection. And I'd say 90% of my men would tell you that they take a Viagra and it doesn't do anything because that desire piece is missing. So there is no such thing as a desire pill. Medication does not exist for desire. Your brain is your largest sex organ, and that is what controls that component. The mind-body connection is so large, and so many things impact it. So the first thing that comes to mind when you talk about your brain being your largest sex organ is your automatic thoughts, and what that looks like when you think about being intimate, or when you think about your sexual health, or you think about yourself as a sexual being. What comes to mind? You know, I have a lot of women say, oh, I'm worried my partner's not going to be attracted to me because I don't have breasts. Or I have my men say, oh, I can't get an erection, and what's my partner going to think? But really looking at those thought processes that you are having, writing them down, reflecting on them. If you were a friend talking to you, is this what you would be saying to yourself? Journaling those thoughts can be really great. Expressing your emotions to a partner, to a friend, to a counselor, finding an outlet to let go of these negative thoughts and these automatic thought processes that you're having is really important for moving ahead with intimacy, okay? And context is always also really important. Your who, what, when, where, why. So how you're feeling towards your partner in that moment, how you're feeling towards yourself, again, with the automatic thoughts. If you have children at home, if you're tired, if you're stressed, the location that you're at, all these things impact, you know, your mental health and how you're viewing intimacy. And I always like to touch on energy conservation strategies because I am an occupational therapist and it does tie in a lot to intimacy. One of my most recommended pieces for couples is scheduling time for intimacy and pleasure. I always recommend like an hour a week where you just dedicate to your partner. Now, that hour does not need to lead to insertive activities. It does not need to lead to foreplay. It could be something simple as just talking. It could be cuddling, it could be kissing, it could involve all these extra activities, but just that dedicated time for each other once a week, uninterrupted, no TV on, no external things bothering you, is just really important for connection. I always recommend scheduling around treatments, especially if you have ongoing chemo or radiation, or scheduling around children and their schedules or when you're needed for them. Schedule on a day when you have the least amount of appointments. Use positions requiring the least amount of energy if physically you're just becoming really fatigued. Keeping a journal to track your energy levels throughout the day and get an idea of, okay, this tends to be the time when I have the most energy, and maybe this is a time that we could work in our schedule to dedicate a little bit of time towards each other. Scheduling does not need to take away romance. A lot of people say to me, now you're telling me I have to schedule my sex life, like as if there's anything else that can go wrong right now. But that spontaneous desire that a lot of people are looking for, yeah, that's great. That's fun. It usually leads to a routine activity. And when you actually take the time to schedule in intimacy, you're actually giving yourself an opportunity to kind of create like an environment that's really conducive to intimacy. You can set up, maybe trial and error of certain things, like trying maybe some new activities, trying new toys, trying new products, also giving your body that ability to become aroused if we're planning on being intimate in the next hour. And then you've already tricked your brain into thinking about that activity, and you've already started that arousal process, and looking for that desire piece can come. Okay. So one thing here is desire for sex is very nuanced. There is a huge spectrum between yes and no. And I think this is a really, really big thing for a lot of patients that I see. I had this patient who she had a light. Her and her partner each had a light. And when they would go to bed, if one of them was interested in intimacy, they would turn on their light. And then if the other patient or the other partner was, they would turn on their light as well. And she told me my partner would turn on his light and I would get upset because I didn't want to. And so she just wouldn't turn on her light. She would ignore it. I asked her to throw those lights away because that is a hard no, and that's not where we want to be. Yes, you have the option to say no, but there's so much in between that you can offer your partner in saying, you know what, I'm not in the mood for certain activities tonight. Maybe we could talk about this a little bit of maybe a time when we could try maybe just kissing or cuddling, or just letting your partner know that you still want to be close to them, that you still desire them, but maybe this isn't the time for that. Just some things on the spectrum here, just to kind of give you ideas of what that could look like, are not right now, but maybe check in with me after some snuggles. I'm open to it, but I'm going to need to shift our context to get there. I'd love to give and not receive. I haven't decided yet. Let's try it and I'll let you know how I feel. And maybe I'm in the mood for some things and not others. There's just a lot more in between that yes and no. And when you're always giving a hard no to a partner, sometimes they start to feel not desired, and then the other partner feels guilty for always saying no. So just opening up communication is just so important, especially when you're not in the mood for activities. Communication is so big for maintaining connection. And of course, another slide on communication, because it is so important. Be open about what you want and are ready for. I have patients who tell me, I'm worried about my husband giving me a hug because I'm worried he's going to want to kiss me then. And then he's going to think I want to be intimate and I don't want to go there. So, having that discussion, you know what, you're allowed to give me a hug in the morning, but just know that sometimes it's going to end there, and that's all that's going to come of that. And then take away that pressure that it's going to lead to something more. And if you're not wanting to have sex again, reassuring your partner that you still want to be close to them and you want to be connected, and discussing maybe what that looks like in the meantime while certain activities are not on the table. Discuss ways to keep your connection strong and check in with each other regularly. That schedule that I mentioned earlier about like that quality time piece can be a really good time to check in, even if it's not directed towards intimate activities. But it's a really great opportunity to just check in with where each other's at and ways that you can stay connected. And always have these conversations outside of the bedroom to avoid hurt feelings. If things are, you're in a moment and you say, I'm not in the mood for anything, sometimes it can lead to hurt feelings. So I like to encourage this to happen prior to a bedroom event. And then something we talk about a lot is VENIS approach to sex, which is the very erotic, non-insertive sex. There tend to be two different views of sex. One is a goal-oriented ladder approach, which I'd say majority of couples follow this approach, the kissing, the caressing, the foreplay, leading to penetration, orgasm, and then kind of done. And then when orgasm isn't reached, then sometimes there's a little bit of hurt feelings or letdown. And that's kind of a routine schema, relationship schema. If you want to know what one looks like, that is what it looks like. And when that's interrupted, a lot of the times people don't engage in activity. You know, I have a lot of patients say to me, I can't get an erection anymore, so I haven't had an intimacy in years. Or, you know, it doesn't have to look like this ladder approach does. What it could look like is the circle approach, which means that, you know, these activities, they don't have to follow a certain line. They can be interchanged. One activity can be an end on its own. We don't have to reach a goal. You know, they say this latter approach is like having an appetizer, dinner, dessert, whereas having a meal of appetizers can be just as enjoyable. Just really broadening your view of what sex can look like can be really, really important, especially when that schema, that routine of what you're used to gets interrupted. Just that change in perspective between you and your partner can really change intimacy altogether. And I also like to touch on this excitation and inhibition system. This is from the Come As You Are book by Emily Nagoski. It is a great book. I recommend it highly. Her name is over here under this quote. But when it does come to desire, like what's going to get you going and what's going to hit your break, just knowing that you can explore what can get you going. Everyone's accelerator is uniquely sensitive, and certain things will turn you on and certain things are going to turn you off. And, you know, the goal is to figure out what's going to hit my accelerator harder than my brake right now. Examples of accelerator things are love bonding, explicit or erotic cues, visual cues, romantic behaviors. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on what some of those can look like on the next slide. And then inhibition things, kind of like those automatic thoughts that I mentioned earlier, the feelings about your body, feeling used by a partner, stress, mood, sexual history, all very important. I have some questionnaires in my office that explore your accelerator and your brakes so we can really figure out, you know, what are things that do get you going and what are things that are really going to inhibit you from moving forward with your desire piece. And I really love this quote. I always read it in every presentation I do. You were born entitled to all the pleasure your body can feel. Your pleasure belongs to you to share or keep as you choose, to explore or not as you choose, to embrace or avoid as you choose. So one thing to keep in mind here is for your 5 senses, again, I mentioned earlier, your brain is your largest sex organ, and where your brain gets its information from is from these biological 5 senses for arousal. So that's where you're going to get your information from. So exploring this can be really fun to do on your own or with a partner. Each person has one sense that triggers the greatest amount of arousal in their bodies. And most people don't even know which sense this is. Most people haven't explored this. Most people couldn't even tell you what their partner's largest sense for arousal is. Ideas for different senses. When it comes to vision, things like erotic movies, magazines, looking at your partner, maybe the removal of vision with blindfolds, sounds, maybe like a sexy Spotify playlist of music, audiobooks, partner communicating needs or pleasure, smells of candles, oils, partner's perfume, cologne, certain tastes, sweet, savory, spicy. Some people like to whip cream off people. Some people say oysters are an aphrodisiac. Different types of touch, massage, masturbation, like caressing, feathers, handcuffs, all these can be really fun to play around with and figure out what does arouse me the most, especially when you are struggling with that arousal piece. This can be a really good activity to do solo or with a partner, and just, again, getting you out of that routine that maybe has been interrupted and figuring out a new way to do that. And when it comes to intimacy with a partner, so a lot of couples say, well, we're not really in the mood for activities like foreplay or intercourse. So how can we stay connected in the meantime? I like to dig in a lot with love languages, talking about, the ways that you give and receive love. I'm sure you've all heard about these in the media or somewhere. They're very popular to talk about things like quality time, physical touch, acts of service, words of affirmation, gift giving. We all receive and give in different ways, and figuring out how you give and receive and how your partner gives and receives, and how maybe those line up, or maybe a way that you guys can meet in the middle. What activities did you guys do when you were first dating? What connected you? What made you go on that second date? Was it something like, doing a certain activity together? Maybe it was cooking together. Do you still do those activities that, you originally loved to do together? And also the reasons that you participate in intimacy are really, really important. There was a study done that showed couples who participate in intimate activities to improve closeness to a partner were more likely to be successful with intimacy over the lifespan versus those who engaged in intimacy for pleasure. Now, it didn't matter if pleasure was high, as long as the closeness to a partner was also high. That was the most research for success there. So if pleasure was high and closeness to a partner was low, those are the least amount to say successful with intimacy long-term, especially with changes to aging and illness. So that's just something to keep in mind too, and reflecting on why you do engage in intimate activities. And that quality time piece, again, that scheduled time out with a partner, just to make sure that you guys are checking in with each other, and trying to stay connected and close throughout all of this. And we already kind of talked about the schedule for intimacy and not needing to lead to concerted sex, but also, if this is a route that you want to take with a partner, plan things out, try and be creative, use those 5 sense activities that I kind of mentioned earlier. And there's another activity that I'm going to mention briefly here, but trying different things, that routine that you're used to may have changed, but things can still be really fun and exciting. Just talk about it, open up that communication around it so that you're both on the same page about what things are looking like between the two of you, discussing your expectations so that everything can be really comfortable. And also, I think this is also a really important topic to broach on too, is, when a partner is dealing with illness, often the other partner sometimes takes on the role of becoming a caregiver. I think it can be really important to separate this role. Obviously, it's okay to have your partner help with certain activities, but again, with that communication piece, communicating, okay, what is a good thing for you to be able to help me with? And what is a good thing that we maybe want to delegate to someone else to help with, so we can, maintain this personal connection and this relationship between us without switching that role from partner to caregiver. Don't be afraid to ask for help with assistance with personal care activities. Utilize your community resources that you have out there. If you need help from home care or private, or reach out to your cancer care team and we can try to set you up the best that we can. But I think distinguishing those roles is really important, and how much you want to distinguish that role is entirely up to you and your partner, but having that conversation about maybe where that line gets drawn. And just don't forget about communicating with your partner and staying connected. So I do want to touch on the Sensate Focus activity. It's also called mindful touching. And when there's been a lot of changes to someone's body and intimacy has been off the table for a while and partners aren't sure what that looks like anymore, Couples will come to me like, we haven't been intimate in years. We haven't done anything other than hold hands in 2 years. We don't even know how to be intimate anymore. I'll often give this activity. It's a very gradual activity of reintroducing touch slowly into the relationship. You and your partner decide at what speed you progress through this activity. The end goal would be intercourse or your equivalent of intercourse, but how quickly you get through this activity depends on you and your partner. It builds trust and intimacy, explores senses and pleasure, avoids hurt feelings, because the whole goal of this is to touch each other gradually while giving feedback and communicating, letting you know what things would be okay should you move towards more advanced activities in the bedroom, taking the pressure off of touch, leading to intercourse as well, and feeling safe with each other and enjoying each other again. Also, if you haven't been intimate in a while and all of a sudden you're going 0 to 100 and going to have intercourse with your partner, if you're fearful of what that looks like, it's probably not going to be a good experience. And if you are in a state of fear, unfortunately, you need to be in a state of relaxation to experience pleasure. So we want to make you comfortable with each other, comfortable with your body, comfortable with your partner, and be able to do that in a gradual manner. This activity I find great. A lot of my patients love it. It takes the fear away from touch. It takes the fear away from things being painful. It takes the fear away from insertive sex being a goal. So, and while you're working through this activity, focusing and meditating on the sensations and staying in the moment. So really practicing that mindfulness piece and avoiding distractions. It's a really great activity. And if it is something you're interested in, I would be more than glad to work one-on-one with you on that. And I just want to encourage to do what feels good. If you look at this long list of things, like these are all intimate activities. And I told you there's such a spectrum of what intimacy means. Here are some examples. There's some empty circles that you could add some thoughts of your own, but knowing that it looks different for everyone and there is no right or wrong answer of what intimacy is. And regardless of anything, I just want everyone to have fun with what they're doing and don't be afraid to explore your body. Again, with that quote, allow yourself to feel the things that your body is able to feel and explore your sexuality as you are able to. And just have fun with things. On this right side here, I have a picture of the O-nut that was developed actually by a cancer patient who was fearful of insertion, and it gave her control over how much of her partner she was comfortable having inserted. So it is like kind of like a buffer toy, and you can build it up or take it down as much as you want, but it gives you control and confidence that something's not going to hurt. Because if you are thinking something's going to be painful, the first thing we do is we clench and we brace and we tighten, and then it makes things more painful, and you want to be able to relax and be confident in the activities that you're doing. And then there's just some examples of toys over here on the left side of different types of vibrators out there, maybe some toys that you've never seen before. We're just opening up that is also okay to play with. And we have lots of toys in this office. I have them everywhere, and they can be really fun to play around with. If you ever want to look at them or come see some different types, I'm here, and I have got a tickle trunk full of them for exploration and you to look at and see if it's something you'd be interested in buying. So I'm sorry if I went through that a little too fast, but it is a passion of mine and something I'm very comfortable talking about. So I am going to lead the room open for questions and discussion right now. If you do want one-on-one consultation or you want to bring your partner in to see me, we are open province-wide. There is a clinic as well in Edmonton if you're in that area and want to be seen in person. And we do also offer virtual sessions. And the contact for the program is oasis.program@ahs.ca. You are able to email that for a referral. You do not need to go through a healthcare provider. You can directly email us if that's something that makes you more comfortable reaching out. I just hope that this conversation can open up that this is normal for changes to happen. to your body, to your relationships, to your sexual health, and that is okay. And we are here to support you through that.
Amazing, Julie. Thank you so much. And Jen, for being here with us this evening. I am going to shut off the recording now.